called the next day.
Makes a difference. It was getting dark in here. I'm like,
Yeah, it does make a difference.
Probably 5,000 a day for 2.5 days. No, not at all. Not at all. Well, we only have to wait until Friday. Clock slipped up on us here. It is 5 o'clock, November 18, 2014. This is the City Council regular meeting. And at this time, yes, it is. At this time, we have no one in the audience to speak at before the city council for the public speaking session, but we do have an executive session, and therefore, city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Cox. We have 4 items for closed session this evening. 2 are existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, one for the Airport Authority, one for the City Council, both pertaining to the same case.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt. I'm sorry. I didn't ask for a roll call. Sorry, Caroline.
Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Here.
Councilmember Valla's absence is noted. Mayor Pro Tem McEachron.
Here.
Mayor Cox.
Here. I'm sorry. Mr.
No problem.
Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Cox. To continue on, we have 4 litigation items. 2 are existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1. They are the SEC versus City of Victorville, and the case title and case numbers are set forth on the agenda. Those are items A and B. The third item is also existing litigation, and it's Frank Lindsay versus City of Victorville, again pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1. The case number is set forth on the agenda. The last item is anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D4, and that involves one potential case. To the extent there is reportable action, we will report it either at the conclusion of the closed session or immediately prior to the commencement of the 6 o'clock meeting.
Are there any questions of the attorney from the council members? Comments from staff? In that case, we will adjourn. I'm sorry to get ahead of you. No. In that case, I'll adjourn to the executive session at this time at 5:02. And at the conclusion of the executive session, we'll come back to this room, and the attorney will report on those closed session items.
Ready?
Ready.
As a result of this evening's closed session, we do have reportable action with respect to item C, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, Frank Lindsay versus City of Victorville. The City Council, by unanimous vote with Councilmember Valles being absent, voted to direct me to prepare the necessary ordinance to bring Chapter 1390 of the Victorville Municipal Code in line with the current state statutes pertaining to regulation of registered sex offenders, and to wait with respect to the Supreme Court ruling on Chapter 1380, which is residency restrictions on restricted sex offenders. So that is the vote, 4-0, for me to bring that back at the council meeting on the
16th of December.
December. And the purpose of that is to settle the threatened litigation or the existing litigation. The report.
Good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock, well, technically 6:01. Call the council meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember,
Here.
Councilmember Valla's absence is noted. Mayor Pro Tem McEachron.
Here.
Mayor Cox.
Here. We have the invocation by Minister Betsy Cox, Burning Bush Baptist Church. I'm sorry I was late getting in here. Is she here? She is here, if you'll come down. And that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Dan Muncy, Victorville's fire chief.
Heavenly Father, we come before your presence, God, and we just want to just say thank you. Thank you for another meeting, Father. Father God, I ask that you touch the hearts of each and every council member that's represented here, Father. Allow them to use good wisdom, oh God, in the decisions that they make regarding this council, God. Oh, Father God, I ask that you touch each and every person that's represented here, oh God. God, touch our police officers and our firefighters, oh God. Those military men and women, God. We just thank you right now in the name of Jesus. Father God, this is another Thanksgiving holiday coming up, and we thank you for that. But most of all, Father, we thank you for every day is Thanksgiving. And we just thank you right now, Father. We just thank you. We love you. We honor you. And bless this assembly in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Betsy, thank you.
All uniformed personnel, Bataan, hup! All civilians and uniformed personnel, put your hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we begin with the session here, we have on the agenda a presentation by Fire Chief Dan Muncy recognizing Eagle Scout Julian M. Estrada for his donation of time, fundraising efforts, and volunteer organization to create the Fallen Firefighter Memorial at Station 311. Dan, would you go ahead?
Up, Julian. Honorable Mayor, members of the council, thank you for allowing us to stand in front of you. Let me introduce to you Julian Estrada. Julian is a Life Scout with Troop 557. Yes, sir. Julian is no stranger to this council. He's been here before. He informed me he sat through a 2-hour meeting at some point and also has received a merit badge. Julian's father is a Master Sergeant in the United States Army. Thank you very much. On I have a letter here. Let me read this. On July 19, 2014, Julian dedicated a fallen firefighter memorial to the city of Victorville. This memorial is now honorably displayed in front of Fire Station 311, which is the Fairgrounds Fire Station. This flag of the United States of America was raised by Julian and his fellow troops on that morning in honor of the fallen firefighters of the city of Victorville and the county of San Bernardino. With great honor, Julian, I want to present this flag of the United States of America that was removed from service the following morning of the dedication. Julian, I want to thank you on behalf of all firefighters for taking your time to raise the funds and gather the support and get the manpower that was needed to dedicate the memorial. I would also like to invite all members of the public to come by the fire station. It's right in the front yard and see Julian's work. It's outstanding and it's an honor to be in front of you, Julian. We don't often see young men of your caliber that can spend as much time that's needed to become an Eagle Scout. Now, to correct the record, Julian's a Life Scout, and in the second Tuesday of December, yes, sir, he's going to be going in front of his Eagle Scout boards, which he hopes to obtain that rank in the Boy Scouts of America. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I do want to say I had the wonderful honor of attending the flag raising and representing the city at that event. It was a very moving, very touching event. Julian, we're very proud of you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. City Clerk, would you present the agenda for the council meeting tonight, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there are 2 revisions to tonight's agenda. The first one is regarding item B1, which is public hearing item. There are 3 ordinances. The staff is requesting that this item be removed from the agenda at this time and requesting to be re-advertised for the meeting to be held on December 16th. Agenda item 2.
For clarification, even though it's scheduled for a public hearing, so we are not going to hold the hearing and then remove it because of the technical problem. We'll just remove it, and there will be no discussion on that matter.
The reason for the requested removal is we have some concerns about the noticing. We'd like to renotice it. We've made some revisions to one of the ordinances to tighten them up, and because of the changes, we think it should be renoticed.
Thank you. I just wanted a clarification in case there were individuals here that wanted to speak on that item. Please continue.
Agenda item D2, there is a replacement of Appendix 1 and Appendix 2A in that item due to updated language in the government code. These versions are the current versions of the Conflict of Interest Code language. That information has been provided on the dais to the council and is also available to the public. And those are the only revisions that we have at this time.
The revisions, for those who are interested, revisions to agenda item D2, and that's on the table out front in case
That-
anybody wants a copy of it.
That's correct.
Okay? Any other revisions or changes?
None at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from council? First item on the agenda is item A1, which is an appeal hearing, City Council, City of Victorville, appeal hearing called for the purpose of hearing arguments for and against Planning Commission denial of master sign program and conditional use permit PLN 14-00017 that would have allowed for a site plan standards and deviation from standard Title 16 standards, including a multi-tenant freestanding sign for a new digital message board located at 12370 Hesperia Road, Heritage Victor Valley Medical Group. Since this is an appeal hearing, before we start the hearing, are there any questions from council to staff or any comments from staff?
Staff has no comments at this time. The director is available if the council would like a brief presentation.
Okay, in that case, is the appellant here, and would they like to come forward and address the council?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Tom Stino. I'm the architect and representative for Heritage Medical Group. And the reason why we're here on this appeal for the decision for the sign is for a few reasons. The sign that's currently there is an old, outdated sign that is in need of disrepair, and I think I have a photo of it here. I don't know if you can see that. A couple pictures of it right now. We've all seen this sign, and we would like to have the sign replaced. So our intent is to replace this sign with a brand new sign. The sign meets the size requirements of staff in the development code. The issue was the reader board. That was the main item on this thing, was doing a reader board. I know we've all seen the Smile Dental right down the road. I passed it on my way here tonight, and that is a very loud and changing sign. This is not our intent at all. What this sign is to be used for is public service announcements. We have Heritage Medical Group takes almost 50% of that entire Wilmington Village right there, almost over 20 doors in that center. So what they want to use this for is they have functions for seniors. They have cooking. They have aerobics. They advertise flu shots for these folks here. So these messages that would be on that board are not for sale of components or products. These are for the seniors who would actually have an opportunity to be able to drive past this and see what they're having for that day. So it is a community service reader board is what we're asking for. The other item that staff had asked us to do on this was to embellish the sign with the base of the sign, and embellish it with some stone or something of some kind of texture. Well, if you look at that center that we're at, it's more of a contemporary center, and we're matching the architecture of that center. So within the setbacks or outside of the setbacks, and we feel that the look of that sign meets the architecture of the center. So I'm hoping you can reconsider on this decision for this appeal. And I would like to call up Merlin Alberg. He's a COO of Heritage Medical Group, and he would like to explain a couple things also on that sign,
Okay.
if I may.
Thank you. Please give your name for the record. Please.
Good evening, Council. My name is Merlin Alberg. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Heritage Victor Valley Medical Group. In March of 2013, we changed our business model, so it's been almost 2 years ago now, to include programming for any senior in our community. Today, approximately 21 months later, we have over 2,000 seniors who come to this location during the course of any given month for free programming. We're the only medical group in town that does this. Other medical groups do some programming, but they charge for those. And what we have found that seniors can often not even afford to pay a $5 fee to cover some of the expenses. As a result of that, our intention, our business model was not only to provide services for which we get reimbursed, of course, being a medical group, but in addition to that, try and change the quality and the lives of the seniors in this community. We would find this an effective way to communicate with the public, as Tom has mentioned, not as a flashing board, But for any given day or time, for a message to be there for prolonged periods of time, maybe more than one day, maybe hours, maybe several days, to make people aware of the services such as flu clinics, cooking classes, aerobics classes, woodworking classes, and these are the kinds of things that our seniors are coming to take part in. We did a recent study. We took 20 seniors who attend these classes on a regular basis, and we compared their claims data to seniors who don't attend these kind of socializations. And what we found is that seniors who are coming to these kinds of activities have 60% fewer occurrences of having to use medical services such as the hospital emergency rooms or being hospitalized because of the quality of their lives have improved through socialization and activities. So that's why we feel it would be a community improvement to have this kind of a sign there on the road. I'll answer any questions that anybody has.
Do we have any questions of the applicant this time? Question? I have some questions of staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is staff. This is a replacement of an existing sign. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, is the sign for the center or the sign for the business? I hear that the businesses, or the name of the business, have about half of the business in the whole center, or somewhere near there, or maybe a little
Yeah,
more.
it would be considered a sign for the entire plaza, yes.
For the entire one. There's no question of the sign. It's the reader board and the architectural or the setback. What exactly? It sounds like there's three issues.
Yeah, there are three. The setback and the architecture are somewhat minor, and it's the reader board that's prohibited and not allowed except for specific uses in the code. There is a provision in code that says that you can ask for deviations from the code. So that's why you're hearing this. That's why the Planning Commission heard it as well. So the signs, I don't, Ryan might remember, but the Planning Commission said that reader boards, we should try them. They were prohibited for the longest time. Then we said we should try them. Signs came in, and then because I think part of the rationale in allowing them was that, oh, not that many businesses were going to use them, you know, they're expensive, and it turned out that they did start popping up around the city. On Palmdale Road, the speed sign, I think, was one of the very first ones, the dental sign, and then after that it was like, wait, this is getting out of hand, and we wouldn't want every property owner to do a digital sign, so then they went back to being prohibited.
They went back to being prohibited.
Correct.
And how long has that been?
2008, 6 years then.
So for 6 years they have, because I wondered when they started issuing the permits for the digital signs and then not. So since the 2006 or 2008 period of time, the city have not issued permits for digital signs? Is that?
Would be correct, yeah.
That's
The only exception was in a court settlement with the church.
Yeah, that was a court. I understand. Thank you for bringing that.
There are also specific standards for like the mall, when the mall did theirs, because of the size of the property. I believe it regulates that.
Okay.
If
Council members.
If they wanted to have a reader board, say, by their front door that provided all the same information to people, would that be prohibited? Mounted on the wall by their front door?
Yes, that would be prohibited.
It would be prohibited.
Correct.
So the moving letters are something that the city is not approving right now. Would they change?
Correct. Any digital display. Now, if you're saying if it completely stayed that the entire time, I don't even know if that would comply with the code as a wall sign, but
what we're concerned about is a sign out on the street where everybody driving by is going to be reading the messages on that sign? Is it?
Yes, and the distraction of it,
Yeah.
has a number of issues in terms of putting it out by the street.
When the council or planning commission's recommendation, council action, 6 years ago, was that based upon a safety issue or an aesthetic issue?
Both. Yeah, you can't control the content. I think that was part of it. The dental sign with it had the teeth on there, you know, the rotten teeth on there. It just
in the case of the dental sign, it's advertising other businesses. So even though it was only for the dental office, it's advertising a law firm. It's advertising. In other words, you could sell space on that reader board. Once it's up, you can't do anything about it. So the Planning Commission felt that the experiment didn't work and that we shouldn't allow them any longer, and they've been prohibited since 2008. The only instance, like you said, was in the settlement with the church,
Schools, churches,
in the mall.
and parks in the mall.
And the ordinance talks about, I guess, how we could approve, but what would be the reason to approve this one? How is this one different from others that?
We wouldn't recommend that you approve it.
Understand
because
that,
it would,
but-
it would be difficult to say it is different from others.
Yeah.
And we would have concerns that, I agree that the sign is in bad shape and it could be a new revised sign. What they're doing for the elderly and the people who come to their spaces is a good, noble cause. But that's also part of the distraction concern that you're driving 50 miles an hour down Hesperia Road and you've got to figure out what time the next quilting class is or something. And there's a driveway, within 50 yards of that sign that they're looking for to turn in. So there's safety issues like that too that are a concern that approval would, could cause problems.
I only have one other question. From the Planning Commission's point of view, they recommended the denial of the sign, but they didn't see a problem with the aesthetics or the location or the setbacks or anything, did they?
No, it was a little bit awkward in that they were recommending him come work with staff on the architecture and the design, and they were willing to work with deviations on the setbacks and the placement of the sign, but not the reader board. And we were kind of hoping that would be the direction, but I think Tom said that no, we want to stand with the design as it was, so that it just went like that. So.
All right. Any other questions from council members? Any questions from the council members to the applicant? I guess, any further comments? Tom?
Can I just clarify one thing? The reader board will only be for Heritage Medical Group. There's no advertising. There's no other businesses at all advertising on this sign at all. And again, if there's an issue, I'm not sure if there's any way of policing this, but the idea is, I don't know if there's a conditional use permit. How do we want to put this as a kind of condition of use? How about that? That if it ever was abused, it would be turned off,
And Tom, I hear what you're saying, but First Amendment rights, we would never win that. I look to our city attorney. We've been down this road with Lamar and all the billboard companies, and now they've got digital billboards up. We cannot police, nor can we tell them what they can and cannot put up there. Once it's permitted, once it's up, you can do whatever you want with it. So you can tell us, and you can and say all day long that you're not going to do those things, but if Heritage were to sell tomorrow to some larger corporation, they could do whatever they wanted with it. So there's no ability, there's no conditions, there's not really anything that we could do that would prevent you from ever doing that or someone subsequent to you. So
isn't this a conditional use at this point?
it would not matter. It's still a First Amendment right. I'm going to defer to our city.
It is a First Amendment right, and prohibitions on free speech are looked at very difficult to overcome that. So,
whenever we do a conditional use permit on gas stations or any other project, right? If we deviate from those conditions as stated, then they can pull your conditional use permit. Why couldn't the same happen for this type of issue right here?
Well,
If we're saying that we're going to do a certain specific thing,
does it, Chris? This wouldn't typically go under a conditional use permit at all for some use like this.
Not the sign.
Not for a sign. I mean, it's unfortunately the problem is you have a prohibition in your municipal code right now that you'd have to overcome. Typically, you'd overcome that with a variance, and you'd have to make findings and determinations on that variance, which I don't think you can make in this case.
The master sign program that they're asking for, in the code section, it allows you to ask for a deviation or a change to the sections of the code with a CUP. That's our problem. We're going to propose a code amendment to clarify that it's not to allow a prohibited use, but the way the wording is right now, it kind of means like you can deviate from the size of the sign or the height of the sign, but it certainly doesn't say that you can't ask for a reader board that's prohibited. So it doesn't specifically say that, so it was tough for us to tell him that you can't apply for that. So
Is this sign under a CUP?
through the master sign program, yes,
It is. Application currently now is a master sign program, which is a
with a CUP.
the CUP. That's what it is. And a conditional use permit, though, has teeth in the code that does allow us for, if we deviate from those conditions as set forth, you can yank that conditional use permit. So it's much greater than just freedom of speech at that point. If we state on those conditions, if we write those conditions to state that the text will be there no less than an hour, for example, and the time frame of a gradient leaving the screen and or coming back, not a flashing screen, is a 30-second to a 1-minute, whatever that may be, to write some conditions that actually has teeth, because this is a conditional use permit. So this will give us the option then, or give you the option, if we stray away from the condition at hand, you could yank this from us and shut us down.
Other questions of Mr. Stino? Okay, council members, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It seems like we have three options. It's I may be wrong here: approval, denial, or to refer it back to staff with further research with the attorney to see if that option is even available. I see signs that have the changing lettering. To me, it's a distraction, but I don't know that it's proven to be, and I would hate to see Victorville totally outlaw those and find all other cities are permitting them. Distraction, if it interferes with traffic and people's safety, it seemed like that should be universal. And our signs, to some degree, ought to be universal. I don't know what the other cities are doing. To me, personally, it's a distraction because I know I have been distracted by seeing signs, not only in Victorville but other cities. And I have wondered, where are we going? Where are the courts going? Where is the state legislature going? Is anyone considering any change at all, or is it local option? Planning? Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, I wonder how reading a message board on a sign off the sidewalk is different from reading a text message on my telephone. I mean, what exactly is the difference?
When you're driving, that's also prohibited, by the way.
Yeah, I know. That's why I don't do it. But a text message, I mean, a message flashing, it just seems to me that if this is a prohibited use, and the great service that Heritage provides, that is not the issue here. And the value to our community, that's not the issue. The issue is, are those kind of signs dangerous? Are they distractions? Do we believe in our policy? If we don't, let's change it. But if we do, let's live with it.
Well, there's no further questions. What we have left then is an action by the council. Do we have a motion from the council to take an action on this item? We've closed out the appeal. The appellant has spoken. Staff has spoken. There's no questions. Council?
I'm going to make the motion to, is this to approve?
There are two options, two resolutions. One is denying and one is approving.
I would make the motion to deny the appeal.
We have a motion to deny. Do we have a second? We have a second. Therefore, it's time to vote. Council?
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Mayor Pro Tem McEachron. Motion carries with Councilmember Garcia voting no and Councilmember Valles absent.
I think this raises a lot of interesting questions. I'd like to see some more work on it.
And Mayor Cox, I'd agree. I think there's, the city council has a role here, but there were a lot of questions that were brought up here tonight that aren't in our purview. They need to go back to the Planning Commission. I wonder if any of this stuff was discussed at the Planning Commission. I did not see anything to that effect. Perhaps it was, but from my perspective, I think these are questions that need to be dealt with at the Planning Commission. What we were looking at tonight, in my opinion, anytime we have an appeal before us from the Planning Commission, is did the Planning Commission err in their process? I did not see any error. I understand the purpose of what you're trying to do. I think it's noble. But I think the sign program and whether or not we are okay with our current program or we need to change it has to be handled at the Planning Commission level.
You're absolutely correct. It's tough for sometimes to understand that the appeal hearing is actually a hearing, an appeal of the Planning Commission's action, not what we would normally do under a public hearing where we would set it. So we're operating differently, and it's very good points have been made.
And if there are other options that need to be explored, they should be explored at the Planning Commission
Planning Commission level.
with staff
That's
and then
why
to
I
the
raised
Planning
question with
Commission.
staff, if they want to pursue that with the appellant and/or the Planning Commission. Item B, public hearing B1 is removed from the agenda.
Mayor Cox, we did receive a request to speak on that item.
I'm sorry?
We did receive a request to speak, a speaker card for that item.
On B1?
Yes.
All right. Well, this matter is going to be removed, and we're going to re-advertise it and hold the hearing. Mr. Harriman is requested to speak on the item because it is on the agenda. Mr. Harriman, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. I would just like to make a point on the landscaping. I think we need to explore, and I don't know if this is already an ordinance, landlords having to get a inspection twice a year from the city code enforcement on landscaping and other things. We have a problem with pride in ownership here in Victorville, and I think a lot of it stems from a lot of homes being, the people residing in the homes being tenants, and the owners are just completely out of the picture. And people parking their cars in the front yard, letting everything die, parking trailers in the front yard. We all know what it, we've all discussed that before. But can we come up with some I'm not one for over-regulation, but I think an inspection twice a year to keep the landlords in touch with what's going on and the fact that they're going to be responsible for the dilapidated condition of the property.
Okay.
That's what I want to say.
Points are well taken. When we started recognizing that we need to clean up the community, that's kind of not a really good descriptive word, but applies to everything. We have a lot of support from residences, from businesses. We have the articles in the newspaper everybody's read. And we have had an awful lot of individuals that complied. And now that they're complying, they're expecting the neighbors to comply. And we have a very busy code enforcement workforce out there that's doing these inspections and knocking on doors. We're finding out, though, that we have a number of people that are not complying and have no intention of complying, and so we are going to be issuing citations. And I hate to see too much government, but sometimes that's what it takes. When an individual goes to a lot of work to clean up the property and trim the trees and remove all the fire hazards and the obstacles and the trailers parked in front of the house, and the neighbor refuses to do so, they become very disappointed and disenchanted with the city for not taking an action to make everyone comply and be treated equally. We knew that was going to happen. We hoped it would be on a very small scale. We are still hoping it'll be on a small scale, but we do intend to enforce. We do intend to issue the citations, and we do intend to enforce the law. We're going to have some more changes in the ordinances, but based upon the input that we are receiving from property owners and business people, they want to see this. We believe it has universal acceptance, and we appreciate the support we're getting for everyone. And thank you for your comments.
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council and the public, of course, just as an update, staff has worked with the stakeholders as directed by the council on an inspection program, and we're very close to bringing it back. In fact, I thought once this was passed tonight, it would follow on its heels, essentially. They may even end up being on the same agenda. Not 100% sure of that yet, but an inspection program will be coming back to this council very, very soon.
It has to be done. It's unfortunate that it has to be done, but it has to be done. Thank you. So this item that we initiated, although it's on the agenda, so we took the public comments, is now going to be removed. The whole thing will be re-advertised, and we will have a hearing before the council at a later time.
For December 16th.
December 16th. Thank you very much. The next item is B2, is that correct?
That's correct.
That has not been replaced. City Council of the City of Victorville public hearing for the purpose of hearing an argument for and against granting a certificate of public convenience and necessity to Lurie's Transportation LLC for non-emergency medical transportation. Questions from staff? Any questions from council? At this time, I will open that public hearing on item B2. I have a card, but it's for E1. Is there anyone going to speak on B2? Seeing no one, I will close that hearing. Council.
Motion by Mr. McEachran, second by Mr. Kennedy. Motion carries with Councilmember Vyas absent.
We have the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Item C1 through C9. Are there any additions, amendments, comments from the staff, or questions from the City Council to the staff on those items? If not, we're ready for a motion.
Motion by Mr. McEachran, second by Ms. Garcia. Motion carries with Ms. Vyas absent.
Those stand approved. The next item is item written communication. We have an amendment on D2, but not D1, as I understand it. D1 requests City Council approve the partnership between Southern California Edison High Desert governing entities to be known as the High Desert Regional Partnership, affording numerous energy-related rebate opportunities as set forth in Resolution Number 14071. Are there any questions from council? Any comments from council?
Only that we should thank Adelanto for taking the lead on this. That's good of them.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do you have to read the resolution or not?
No, I do not. Only ordinances.
Okay, we are ready for a motion.
Motion by Ms. Garcia, second by Mr. Kennedy. Motion carries with Ms. Vyas absent.
Next item is item D2, and we have a revision to agenda item D2. Madam Clerk, would you please explain that again?
Yes, the revision is the Appendix 1, which is the model conflict of interest code that is prepared by the Fair Political Practices Commission. This is the revision is the most updated version of that model conflict of interest code, just minor changes from what is in your agenda. And Appendix 2A is the disclosure categories for all of those, the people that have to file the Form 700 conflict of interest statement. Again, these are just the updated provisions from the Fair Political Practices Commission. It's just amounts, dollar amounts, basically. Okay. Minor changes from what is in the agenda.
Updating and technical corrections, but no real change to the resolution itself. Okay, can we have a motion, Council?
Motion by Mr. McEachran, second by Ms. Garcia. Motion carries with Ms. Vyas absent.
Item D3, request of the City Council to approve an additional appropriation in the amount of $19,000 from the State Asset Seizure Funds to purchase computers and monitors. Also approve additional appropriation in the amount of $9,000 from Federal Asset Seizure Funds. Purchase P-FAL equipment, D3. Any questions? Not? A motion, please.
Motion by Ms. Garcia, second by Mr. Kennedy.
Mr. Mayor, I just ask if, Sam, could we get an update for the council on the PFAL program and how that's doing and all the wonderful things that they're doing for the Because I know there's so much that's going on, but we just obviously don't have the whole council to hear about that. As we get a new council, I think it's important.
Good point. Thanks, D4, request the City Council ratify the expenditure plan for the SLESF allocation for 2014, authorize city manager or his designate to process all documents required. Are there any questions? If not,
Yeah,
motion? There are questions.
just one question, Mr. Mayor. I was looking at the backup, and there is no expenditure plan in there. Sam, what?
You're back on D3?
No, D4.
No, D4.
Okay.
There's just a number.
It's vague. The Public Safety Video Network is our sort of citywide, our parks and other public areas. We've got video cameras that in the event something happens, we can go back and take a look at them.
Okay. That's good. Thank you.
Is that good enough, Sam?
Motion by Ms. Garcia, second by Mr. Kennedy. Motion carries with Ms. Baez absent.
D5, request the City Council award a contract to Holland Foreman, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $298,194 to update the sewer master plan and evaluate sewer high maintenance allocations.
Motion by Mr. McEachran, second by Ms. Garcia. Motion carries with Ms. Baez absent.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to abstain on item D6 as my firm does business with Merrill Johnson Engineering.
We have, for the record, one council member abstaining on D6. D6, request Victorville Water District Board of Directors award a contract to Merrill Johnson Engineering, Inc. for the design engineering services for the right-of-way relocation I-15 widening project in the amount not to exceed $47,450. Any questions of staff? If not, we're ready for a motion.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Ms. Garcia. Motion carries with Mr. McEachran and Ms. Baez absent.
And item D7, request City Council to, number one, appropriate an additional $550,532 from Fund 250 Major I projects, and two, authorize the payment of $550,532 to Southern California Edison in accordance with the amended utility agreement for the final payment for the La Mesa Nisqually Interchange Project. The only comment I had, I thought that was closed out and we'd paid everything. What happened?
Yes and no. We've received a very late bill from Edison for some utilities that they had to move, and ultimately we had to pay for. It was something that was part of the project originally, but when staff put the budget together this year, they were under the same assumption that everything had been paid, and it slipped their mind to put in the budget. So the money is still available from the federal government. This is not, it's an additional appropriation only because it wasn't moved from last year's budget into this year's budget, but this effectively does that and then pays the bill.
So it's not new, and it's not an addition we didn't expect.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I've become rather skeptical about final counts here in the last couple of weeks. So, is this the final payment or no? Are we done with paying off that bridge?
I wouldn't hesitate to opine on any final numbers at this time, Councilmember Kennedy.
I'm comfortable with that.
Motion by Mr. McEachran, second by Mr. Kennedy. Motion carries with Ms. Baez absent.
Item D8, request Southern California Logistics Airport Authority Board of Directors, one, ratify the execution of a facility use permit by and between SCLAA and the U.S. Army for buildings 738 and 739, and two, approve an additional revenue appropriation in the amount of $41,144.
Motion by Ms. Garcia, second by Mr. Kennedy.
And along those same lines, we would very much like to bring you additional revenues in the future. So hopefully this is not a final number either.
Good. Hope so.
Motion carries with Ms. Baez absent.
That concludes the major portion. Now we are down to item E1, which is the public comments on items of interest to the public. And I will once again indicate to all those who attended that we welcome your comments. And if you have an item on the agenda, you are given ample time to make a presentation so that we fully understand the issues. But for those individuals who now can speak, it's not on the agenda, and therefore we have to limit the time to 3 minutes, primarily because since it's not agendized, the people who are listening in or watching or here in the audience have no idea that this was going to be discussed, therefore they're not prepared, therefore it would be unfair to enter in and engage in a dialogue on items brought to our attention at this time. If it warrants justification, it would be agendized at a later time and discussed, and individuals would be allowed to have a longer period of time. So public comments on items of interest to the public at this time. I have one card. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That is correct.
Maggie Lowe, if you would come up, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. First of all, let me say I feel a little silly being up here because I'm looking at the dollars that the city needs to invest or spend or gain to keep the flow of the city going. And my concerns from a financial standpoint are probably not that great, yet that's exactly my point in addressing some of the issues, the lesser concerns of the city that affect the overall quality of life in Victorville. So if you don't mind, I would just like to read the statement that I've made, and hopefully if you find it of value, you can put it on a future agenda. Okay. I live in the Sunset Ridge development. I think most of you know where that is. And that development was built probably in the late 80s. My house was built in 88, and I know some were there before that. Right now, they have current speed limit signs that vary largely within the development from 25 to 45 miles an hour. In the interest of public safety, I would like to recommend that the speed signs be revised to a slower limit uniformly inside the Sunset Ridge development to reflect the drastic increase in traffic there. I think we need to focus on the north and southbound major cross streets between Eucalyptus and Sycamore. Random and yet regular police enforcement of the perimeter stop signs, especially at Eucalyptus and Mesa Linda, due to traffic exiting east from U.S. Highway 395 on Eucalyptus, and at Topaz between Eucalyptus to Bear Valley at peak traffic hours, roughly from about 5:30 a.m. to 7:45 a.m. and 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. Enforcement, again randomly yet consistently, I think is necessary. Had plenty of opportunity in the last couple of years to watch what's going on over there, and it's not good. We all know, all of us here know that nothing deters the illegal activity of people better than the visible uniform presence of the police. And I believe in my development over there with this traffic situation is something we need right now. Additionally, I would like the city to consider installing a four-way controlled signal light at Eucalyptus and Mesa Linda, again, due to the extreme amount of motorists blatantly ignoring the four-way stop signs. Motorists are running through the stop signs at high rates of speed. We have already had some accidents there, and some of the victims were minors who had life-changing injuries. The city and the housing developer ended up in a lawsuit behind this particular accident. Some accidents were also alcohol-related. There's been also some property damage accidents. This is a monumentally huge, unsafe intersection, and I think due to it being off the, quote, beaten path of the main part of the city, it doesn't appear to get regular police patrol. Whether it does in fact or not, I don't know, but I have not seen that. School children have to cross this intersection daily to get to the bus stops. I don't think it would be wise for the city to wait until we have fatal accidents there before we get proactive. I would also like the city to post no commercial truck parking, not a truck route, or not permitted on residential streets, or similar signage at US 395 at Eucalyptus, Sycamore, and Bear Valley to help deter truck drivers from bringing their commercial truck trailer rigs into the residential areas and parking overnight. Fortunately, I've gotten some good support from Victorville Police on that recently.
I hate to tell you, but your time is just up, and if you could wrap it up, please, we'd appreciate it.
Okay. So basically, just trying to get a handle on the trucks parking overnight in the development, the traffic control problem, and the yard sale problem that we had over the summer. probably could be remedied by enclosing a notice of the municipal code violation, perhaps along with the sanitation water bill next spring when it starts picking up again, and letting the residents know that we can't be doing this. That's pretty much it. Thank you, sir.
Can you leave a copy of that for our city clerk so that
I can.
we are looking at traffic speeds, stop signs, left turn lanes almost throughout the whole city. We'd like to add that to the list if necessary, or if there's any questions, a staff member will get back to you. Thank
Also,
you for
on the
taking
note of the signs, Your Honor, real quickly, they're in poor condition due to massive amounts of tape, wire, zip ties, and chains being attached to the post. It's very unsightly, and the only solution, we talk about the problems, but I like to offer solutions. And the solution could be possibly to see if we could get some court-mandated sentence workers to do an all-out effort to clean those stop signs.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time and coming down and sharing with the council. I do not have any other cards to address the council at this time. Next item is any report from the city manager, Mr. Robertson.
Mayor and Council, in regards to the last speaker, I'm sure she'll be I counted at least 3 different departments who will be in contact with her very soon on several of those issues. So, but other than that, the only announcement I have, I don't know if it's an announcement or not, but the Assistant City Manager, Mr. Metzler, typically doesn't miss meetings, but he had a very important event this evening. I was hoping to get an update from him, but it might still be going on. More important than the council meeting, he is coaching his daughter's AYSO soccer team in the league championship game tonight. It's an odd schedule because it's a championship game, so go whatever team that is. I don't know. I'm sorry. And I don't know if they won or lost, and I don't know if it's still going on, but that's where he is. He doesn't
Red
like
Hot
to miss
Chili
it.
Peppers.
Go Red Hot Chili Peppers. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
And I wanted to talk about our football team at the college, but now I'm speechless. Any other reports from council or staff or city manager? Reports from council members? No reports? Comments or questions?
No.
None. Mr. Kennedy, none. Okay, well, thank you very much for participating. Thank you for coming down and taking time out of your busy schedule. And have a very good evening. This concludes all the business that we have at hand tonight. Thank you.